Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Art Is You podcast. I'm your host, Carly Scott, and today's episode is called Intuitively Guided Risks. And this is a very prevalent topic for me right now in my personal life because I just took a massive intuitively guided risk. But in this episode, I'm going to focus more on starting my photography business because that was a massive risk, but also it was made out of intuition. And I think that when you take risks using your intuition, it can be something that just kind of accelerates you on your path that is meant for you. I don't even know, you guys. This has just been my experience with it. So I'm going to share what I know, and I also asked chat to help me kind of organize my thoughts a little bit about this episode, so I will be referring to that just because it's a little helpful with keeping me organized. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about this in regards to my business because I feel like there's a lot of people who maybe want to start their own business of some kind or pursue a passion, do something kind of crazy with their life. Not crazy, but big and different or unexpected or whatever. That can be really scary. And so I'll kind of talk about it in that context. And yeah, I have a lot of thoughts. So let's dive in. First, let's just talk about what intuition is, because it's it can be hard to know what's intuition versus just how do I know it's not something else that's influencing me to want to do that or whatever. So here's what it says. What is intuition? Intuition is often described as a rapid, unconscious process that draws from our past experiences and knowledge to guide decision-making without deliberate reasoning. Okay, that was kind of a mouthful, but this is why intuition is hard to explain and talk about, because you just heard that definition. It's fast. It's this unconscious process. It's this, I like to describe it as a quiet knowing, where it's not necessarily it's persistent usually too. If I have something that is constantly nagging not nagging, it's not negative. It can feel negative because you're I'm too scared to pursue that dream, or I'm too scared to start my business. So the feeling of wanting to start it feels like it's nagging at you, but really it's just tapping on you. I think of it like your inner child or a little kid being remember, I have this dream or whatever, don't forget, let's take some action on it, that's kind of what intuition can feel like sometimes, at least for me. And it can be confusing to the people around you because, it says in this description, you are drawing off of your own experience and your own knowledge, and that is unique to you, and your decision making in these intuitive moments is made without deliberate reasoning, it says. So to other people it might seem whoa, what the heck, why'd you stop teaching and start a photography business? That's risky. What are you doing? But for me, I had always wanted to be an artist, and my, the inner child just tapping, hey, go after that dream. Hey, go after it, try it, and eventually, I just decided to listen to it, and it's crazy how things started to align for me and start to make sense. And it's been a crazy journey since then. It's been 5 years since I decided to start my photography business, but yeah, it's just kind of crazy how my intuition led me to do that and then took me on this wild ride, honestly, to where I am now. And I just made a massive decision in my personal life that was like a huge risk, and I just know it was my intuition because it kept tapping on me quietly for a very long time before I acted on it. The role of intuition in decision making. In complex or ambiguous situations, intuition can be a valuable tool, allowing individuals to make swift decisions when time or information is limited. So again, going back to my photography business as the example, taking the risk of essentially transitioning from being an elementary school teacher to being a business owner and photographer, could be like a complex or ambiguous situation. And it was happening during COVID too. Like, I started my photography business during 2020, and so it was a complex situation. I also had moved cities. I had just moved from Seattle to Vancouver, and so my life was kind of complicated. I had also just gotten married, and my husband and I were both looking for jobs because we had just moved cities. Like, life was complicated, you know? It was very complex, and I kind of had to listen to just my own experience and not necessarily like, you know, everyone around me is like, apply for jobs, just keep applying, more jobs. And I was applying for so many jobs that I didn't want to do, and also probably wasn't even qualified for. They weren't in my field. Like, schools were completely remote. Kids weren't in classrooms. So like, I couldn't find a teaching job. I couldn't find any work, you guys. Anyway, but I decided to make a decision based out of my intuition, even though it was risky, because it's like, you're not guaranteed to make money, and you're not guaranteed to be good at it, and people aren't guaranteed to like work with you and all of that stuff. There's so many risks that I guess were a part of that decision. I also had like a ton of student loans from getting my teaching degree, and I had only been a teacher for a couple years at that point. And so I was like, am I really going to transition when I've only used my degree for a couple years? So again, if like time is limited, like, I needed money. My husband and I were living in his parents' basement because neither of us were finding work. And so like, time is limited. You need to make a quick decision. And instead of acting from like a place of fear of like, okay, well, I guess I'll just get like a job I absolutely hate and just start making money, I guess. I don't know. Which is kind of what I had been trying to do for a little bit, and it wasn't working for me. But when you listen to your intuition, it's not acting out of a place of fear. It can be really scary to act from your intuition because you're not ignoring the fear, you're noticing the fear, and you're saying, I'm scared to do this, not because I think it will like be a bad thing. I'm scared to do this because it will shake up my life, or I'm afraid to fail at this, or whatever. And so that's more what intuition feels like. You're not acting out of a place of like lack and scarcity with intuition. Lack and scarcity, again, kind of are tied to fear, just fear of like it not working out and just all these things, versus deciding to just follow that gentle nudge. And even if you're afraid to follow it, you just follow it anyway, and know that something magical is gonna happen. I don't know. Like, that's what I have to imagine when I follow my intuition. Because again, it's like that, it's just that piece of like your inner child, like, oh, I want you to do this thing, or go for it, or like, don't forget about this. And I feel like because it's coming from that sweet inner child, that when you take that leap and follow the intuition, it's like hoping for magic almost. Like, something magical happen, okay? Like, I just did something big for my inner child, and I want to inspire other people to do like big things for their inner child, because like, life would just be so much more beautiful if more of us were doing that. And I wish someone had told me and showed me how to do that. So I'm going to try to like show other people how to do that if they want to, right? Like if you don't want to, that's totally fine. And like also why are you listening to this podcast? But that's not my business, I guess. Anyway, moving on. Okay, balancing intuition with rational analysis. When to trust your gut. Intuition is particularly useful when dealing with complex scenarios where analytical data may be insufficient or overwhelming. Okay? Again, complex scenarios, there's a lot of moving factors, a lot of pros and cons, a lot of things that could go wrong, a lot of things that could go right, and you're just like with my photography business, for example. From an outside perspective, it could look like maybe there were more cons to pursuing a photography business during COVID, a pandemic, and not having like enough money to even like live on our own. My husband and I, like we were living with his parents, and so from the outside it might have looked like that's a stupid decision. She should try to like stay in teaching and just make, you know, a more stable income, I guess, instead of trying to pursue something that's totally outside of like what she went to school for and things like that. Anyway, but my intuition, like they didn't have my experience. They didn't know the quiet nudges I was getting. They didn't know all of my past experiences and all of my life context. And nobody can know that for other people. And that's why your intuition is such like a personal thing that no one else can really tell you if that was your intuition or not, but you can know for yourself if it was. And yeah, I don't know. Okay. Potential pitfalls. Ooh, this is good because I fall into these pitfalls, you guys. While intuition can be beneficial, it's essential to be aware of its limitations. Relying solely on gut feelings can lead to cognitive biases and errors in judgment. Okay? This is so important, and for me it's extremely important because I think I'm someone who naturally I like to follow my intuition, and I like to it feels amazing for me to be able to like act out of alignment, but I am learning and I am so naive sometimes and overzealous sometimes, and like even now I'm like catching myself sometimes getting too passionate talking about this because I know there are pitfalls when it does come to intuition, and I don't want to misguide anyone to go out and make an unsafe or completely like irrational decision that actually isn't your intuition. Like it is, and we're gonna get into that later. So like before you go do anything, just listen to the full episode, okay? But yeah, I guess I can fall into those pitfalls sometimes of feeling like, wait, is this my intuition or is it not? And usually if I'm questioning, it's not my intuition, is what I found. And again, it's usually persistent for a long, long time before I even act on it, because I'm so scared to act on it, because it would be acting like against my fears, essentially. Like, does that make sense? So if you're like, oh, I should just go do this, and you're just like ready to do it right away, it's not always your intuition telling you like it's time or even like the right thing, right? Like sometimes we have the right idea, but it's not time yet. And that's also where intuition is important, of like really sitting with yourself and be like, what is my intuition actually telling me? Is it telling me I'm ready for this step yet? Or is it telling me I'm not ready for this step yet? And not jumping into things too quickly, because usually your intuition is something that can like persist for a while. Or again, if you're in like an emergency situation, intuition can pop up as well, and that might be a situation where you have to act very quickly. But anyways, I we'll get into the next pieces because there's some tools that can help you with this, because I know it's kind of complicated and hard to discern sometimes. But first, chat gave me a couple like real life examples of where intuition is kind of helpful. So they gave military applications. It says the U.S. military has studied intuition extensively, recognizing its role in life-saving decisions made by soldiers in critical moments. And it gave like a link to an article. And then also in the medical field, it says surgeons often rely on intuition during unexpected situations in operations, making split-second decisions that can be life-saving. So yeah, I mean, this was true even with starting my photography business. The nudge had been there a long time for me to pursue something creatively and just even start that business as like a side job in addition to being a teacher. Like, I had been having that nudge for a while, but then when COVID happened and I couldn't find a teaching job, it was like I had to make a quick decision, and I just decided to jump and I went for it. And that's the same thing with the risk I took in my personal life. It's like I had the nudge for a long time, but I knew my intuition was telling me I wasn't ready. And then it's like when the pieces fall into place for your intuition to be like, it's time, then you feel ready to act because you've been noticing the intuition like the whole time. And you've been like acknowledging it and kind of being like, okay, this seems important. Like, it keeps coming up. It seems important. Like, I'll pay attention to it. And then eventually it's time to act on that intuition. And in these examples, it's like unexpected situations, right? And so sometimes an unexpected thing pops up in your life and you have to make a quick choice. And acting out of fear, at least in my experience, usually leaves me in a situation that is more uncomfortable and just not right for me, that I end up having to like change things later if I act out of fear versus if I follow that like intuitive pull that's like, this is what we need to do right now based off of what we know, you know? Okay. So the last thing is a tool and framework that you can use called the BRAIN method. And so it's an acronym, and it's a decision-making tool to help you with your intuition as far as like, is this my intuition or not, and like how to decipher things. But it stands for benefits, risks, alternatives, intuition, and nothing. Okay? And it gave me a link to the website, what is it called? Like wellnessroadpsychology.com. Okay, so here's what they say about each of those things. So like benefits, the B in brain. What are good things that can happen if I do this? My photography business. I was like, well, if I do this, good things that could happen are like, it could work out, I could make money, and I could also have like my dream job. That seems like a pretty good positive. And then risks is the R in brain. What negative things could happen if I choose to do this? For me, it could set me back in my teaching career because I'm taking a pause from it and potentially like leaving it for a long time, and so, or forever, I don't know. Like, I just didn't know at the time how long I would be, whatever. It was a risk, right? That was part of the risk. And also, if I didn't make money, I was afraid of embarrassment. There was a lot of risks also, a lot of them based on fear, right? Fear of me not succeeding. And then our alternatives is the A. What are my other options? For me, it was like either continuing to teach, which I loved, but it wasn't necessarily like my ultimate passion as far as how I wanted to spend my life in my dream reality. If I could like actually do whatever I wanted for work. And so my alternatives were to keep doing teaching stuff or to just find a different job that would make me money, but maybe not fulfill that passion as much as photography would have. Intuition is the I. What is my gut feeling telling me? So again, that intuition is like that gut feeling that only you can know. Nobody outside of you can say what your gut is telling you. So that's the intuition piece. But these other letters around the intuition really help you understand your intuition if you're looking at those benefits and risks, and looking at the risks and seeing if they're all coming from fear. That can help too. And then the last letter, N, stands for nothing. What would happen if I chose to do nothing? And yeah, so sometimes, like, again, that can be really helpful, because sometimes doing nothing is the best choice. And then sometimes doing nothing means nothing will change and everything stays the same. And if the way things are is just not okay, then maybe doing nothing is not an option, and you need to follow your intuition or take action. And that is all I have for today, you guys. That was a lot. I spoke a lot. I feel like this is something just that's happening right now for me, so I really wanted to talk about it while it's fresh in my brain. And hopefully, if you're someone who has been on the fence about like following your intuition, that little nudge that's like, just try it, just take some action towards it. I hope this encouraged you a little bit. So I love you guys. I'll talk to you next week. Bye.